Hey, it's Adam from Edge. I'm back in the studio. Last time I was here was to shoot an introduction to a series that we want to do around application compatibility and deployment. In that video, we also covered some of the myths around Windows 7 deployment, things like XP mode and upgrade from XP and things like that. Today's focus is going to be on application compatibility, specifically how do you find out what your apps are and whether they're going to run on Windows 7. To do that, I've brought in one of my colleagues, David, to answer those questions. So I'm just going to put the question out there to you, David. Where do I start?
Well, one of the first things you probably are going to want to figure out is what kind of hardware do I have that's even capable of running Windows 7,
sure.
Right? And we have, some people already have SCCM. If you've got a kind of good idea of where that is, then that's great. We also have a couple other free tools that you can use to do hardware inventory. The ACT tool, the 5.5 tool, will do that for you, and the MAP 4.0 tool will also do that for you.
Okay, so we just fired off a few acronyms there. Let's clarify. SCCM is System Center Configuration Manager.
That's right.
So some inventory tool, right? That'll tell me what my hardware is. Mm-hmm. And tell me what ACT is, and tell me what MAP is.
Okay. ACT is the Application Compatibility Toolkit.
Okay.
And that's something that you download, you install, and the ACT tool is going to use an MSI file, go out there that you deploy to your environment, and that collection agent is going to then pull back all kinds of information to the ACT database.
Okay.
Hardware, application inventory, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The MAP toolkit is the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. And that actually, one of the nice advantages there is that it does not require any agent. And it will scan for all of your machines via IP or workgroup, those different types of discovery mechanisms, and it just uses WMI queries to pull that information back. The downfall to MAP, though, is that it does not do any type of application compatibility. It just pulls all your hardware information.
Okay. All right, so a couple tools then that'll help me find out what my hardware is. So once I figured that out, or maybe I already know what my machines are, okay, what's the application story? Maybe I don't even know what I've got. How do these tools help me find out what applications I have? Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, the ACT tool, right? I mean, you're going to, when you deploy those agents, it is going to pull a number of different ways to figure out what apps are running on your machine.
Okay.
Not only is it, and the other thing I should point out too is that it's not only about just the list of apps, right? Because you also are going to probably want to know, well, how often is this app getting used? What groups of people are going to use this application?
Okay.
What versions of the apps is it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
So the ACT tool will help you with that.
Okay.
The other option would be in SCCM, there's we call it an ACT connector. So you're running ACT, SCCM works in parallel with ACT to go ahead and do your collection mechanisms. And so you have all those capabilities and benefits of ACT while using your SCCM infrastructure.
Okay. So now I've got my list of apps. I've used ConfigMan, or I've used the ACT tool, or maybe I just have a few machines and I already know what I'm running. What's the next step? How do I know if those are going to run on Windows 7?
Okay. Well, before you get to that point, right? I mean, the common thing that most people are going to say is, well, I got my list. Okay, let me go test them all.
Right.
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 Let me test them all. And actually, we recommend that you take a step back and you look at that list and you say, well, what is it really that I want to run in my environment? Because you may have, let's say, 1,000 applications, right? And you do, spend an hour or two on the list, and come down to say, well, really, we only care about 100 of these apps. So you're going to save yourself, if you determine that desired state beforehand, you're going to save yourself a lot of testing time, and you're going to have a clear picture of what you need to go when you move to your testing.
Okay, so do some app rationalization. Do I really need 3 different word processors and 4 different project management tools? Can I consolidate on some of these? So that's actually really good guidance. Let's just really pare down that list of applications that we need to test. So now I've got the list. Again, how do I find out with this shorter list now which ones are going to run on Windows 7?
Okay. Now it's go time.
Now it's on.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. And the nice thing about this is that the ACT tool, the 5.5 tool, does a lot of the base kind of testing for you.
Okay.
So we have this database of I think right now it's around 8,500 or more applications, where the vendors have already gone and done application compatibility testing for the apps. So the ACT toolkit already just dynamically pulls that in on a regular basis, so that right there in the ACT toolkit, and you can say, well, hey, this app, we already know from the vendor that this will work on Windows 7. So that right there is going to save you a lot of time. There's also an Excel spreadsheet of those 8,500 applications. So in the event that you are not using an automated tool, you have just a list. Let's say you use System Center Essentials to dump out just a list of your applications. You can just go and easily manually compare the apps.
Or if it's a small list, right? Because I'm
Right.
a small company and I know the dozen apps I've got, I can
Yep.
just compare to a spreadsheet. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so after that, right, there's probably going to be, now there's a smaller list, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already know the 8,500, that'll weed out, let's say out of our 100, now we're down to 50 that we don't know about.
Okay, because they were, maybe we've just had them a long time, or maybe we developed them internally, right? There are custom apps that our company has developed themselves.
Uh-huh. And at this point, there's some other resources available.
Okay.
One which would be like we have a document called the Application Quality Cookbook,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to tell you all of the potential areas that you might have compatibility issues for moving to Windows 7.
Okay, so that's really for somebody that develops applications to use to develop for Windows 7. Is that who that's geared at?
It can be used for developers or for IT pros or project managers. It has it kind of has the explanation of what it is, kind of how to test to see if it's available or not, and then it points you to resources for developers on how can you recode things or whatever. It's not a very deep developer doc where you're going to get coding guidance, but you're going to get kind of the framework to where you can go and find out what you need to for things.
Cool.
The other area that I think I should point out in all this, because sometimes people can be thrown back by oh man, I got to test these apps and all this other stuff now,
Yeah.
is the fact that we've got an application compatibility factory. ACF, we'll throw out another acronym in there, right?
Okay.
But that's what we call it. And when you go to that portion of the site, you're going to see that there's a number of partners around the world that can go and actually help you with all or only individual parts of this migration process.
Okay, so I don't know where to, I've got my list of apps now, but I don't know how to test them, or I don't know what to test for. We've got other companies that can come in and help with that, and I find those in the factory. All right, David, this is a lot of really good information. Where do I go to find out more? What else can I use?
Okay. Well, one of the great things to keep in mind is that if you've already migrated to Windows Vista, there is much less work to do from migrating from Vista to 7, because to a very large extent, if your app works on Vista, there's a high probability it will already work on Windows 7.
Okay.
Along those same lines, there's a lot of training already out there that helps guide people from XP to Windows Vista. So a lot of that stuff out there is still really useful to help you in this whole process of migration. And finally, really, where do you go? Where do you go? Which good resource is if you go to technet.microsoft.com/appcompat.
Okay, that's where I can get all these resources, the toolkit, the quality cookbook, things like that.
Get all that stuff there.
All right. We'll check it out. Thanks, David.
Right on.